Welcome to the Doug McConey channel. For those that are new around here, don't forget to follow and subscribe. We've got some great content on leadership, career advice. This week, we're going to be talking about prioritization. So let's get this week going, shall we? All right, so I made it to Los Angeles, Ontario Airport. First time there. They actually wanted to fly us from Ontario, California to LAX. There were a number of people that had a connection, and I said, no thanks, I'll drive it. If you're not sure how close they are, you should Google it because they are close. All right, so this week we're going to be talking about prioritization. I've got a vacation. I'm taking a long weekend at the end of this weekend, and I was thinking, how do I prioritize, particularly when I have a short week, but any week? I think one of the challenges that many people have at all points in their career is prioritization. So the first thing is to talk about what not to do. I usually like to be positive, but we're going to start with what not to do when prioritizing. Now, I actually need to prioritize because I got to go to a client dinner. So I just dropped my stuff off here, and then I'm heading back to the airport tomorrow to fly to Washington, D.C. But I'm going to go to my client dinner, get some sleep, and then we'll pick up how not to prioritize. Back in LAX. First thing you should not do when prioritizing is don't prioritize based on the last person that came to ask you to do something. The most recent doesn't mean the most important. All right, so I made it back to DC. The other thing you can't do to prioritize is just deal with whoever's barking the loudest or whoever's squeaking the most. It's easy to prioritize that way, but you don't want to do that. Just because that client or customer or boss or colleague is yelling the loudest doesn't mean it's the most important. The other thing that you should not do when prioritizing is prioritize what's easiest. It's very tempting to just say, all right, I'm going to get this done, it's easy, but that is not always the highest priority. All right, heading to St. Louis, going to pick up Kelly, and then we're heading to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. All right, I picked up Kelly McConey. It's a little early. It's a little after 7. We're flying to Colorado to see the McGinnises. And we'll pick up prioritization in a minute. At this point, I'm going to prioritize maybe getting a little nap with my gal. All right, let's go to Colorado. That was me sleeping. All right, so we're back in Steamboat, Colorado, learning to ski. Remember, one of my New Year's resolutions, learning new things. So this is our third skiing trip. If you want to know how the last one went and it did not end well, go to last year's vlog. But we're going to try to stay healthy. We've got a great instructor. There's Dan. Dan's our instructor. He's doing an amazing job. I'm learning things like pizza and fries and keeping the money in the boot, like with a bunch of other 5 and 6 year olds. But we're not going to let that intimidate us. So we're going to go hit the slopes. We actually just finished lunch. We're going to, I think, get a little bit more ambitious in the afternoon. But the priority for today, staying healthy, being conservative, and not being my typical maniac self. So we're working on that. That's today's priority. We'll get back to how I prioritize in a little bit. So we're down here at the 107th Winter Carnival Festival in Steamboat Springs, where horses are dragging young children behind them in timed competitions. What a country. For prioritization, we've talked about what you shouldn't do, but what should you do? The first thing is to make sure you understand the stakeholders for all the things that you have on your list. Think about your boss, think about your clients, your customers, think about you individually as well, and what's in your interest, as well as ultimately what's in all those other stakeholders' interests. So make sure you understand who your stakeholders are. All right, they're getting ready to do some more of the races.
Boom! Nice job.
What you just witnessed was the largest firework in the history of the universe. It's probably not true, but it was the world. That firework that you just saw, that big red blob, was 2,800 pounds. It's at the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest firework ever shot off. That's like certified. All right, we're in Dallas. I had an amazing time in Colorado, and it was a short weekend. Kelly's back to St. Louis. Our flight got diverted to Tulsa. It's been a little crazy. So I'm here in Dallas. I've got market visits again. I'm going to our Dallas office, our Houston office. If you've watched the Doug McConey vlog before, you know how much I like connecting with the teams that I have across the country. So we're going to be talking to people at all levels tomorrow in Dallas and Houston. And boy, with all this talk about prioritization, I really haven't made the prioritization theme the priority for this week's vlog, but it is. And so we talked about identifying stakeholders when you're prioritizing. Well, the second thing you need to do that is the most important is ask. So asking the stakeholders allows you to collect information for the next phase of the prioritization process. You need to ask the stakeholders, first of all, when do they want this assignment completed? But you also need to understand when they need this assignment completed, because when they want it and when they need it can be two separate things. All right, I somehow ended up in Houston. I was in Dallas. We had our market visit. It was absolutely awesome. Really excited about that team. I'm in Houston today, have another market visit, and then head into DC, and we'll pick up some more on prioritization. When prioritizing at work, after you've asked the stakeholders, you then have to use some judgment to be able to determine what comes first. And that just takes some time getting comfortable with. And frankly, even somebody like myself that's been doing this for well over 20 years, this can be really difficult. And this leads me to the really number one most important point when it comes to prioritizing, and that is communication. Communicate to all of these stakeholders that you've already thought about, that you've already asked after you've used your judgment, to communicate to them when they can expect to receive whatever they've been asked to do. And it's important that you don't kill yourself trying to meet everybody's expectations. Sometimes you cannot meet a particular goal or deadline, and it's important that you communicate that.
And if you're talking to the right stakeholders, and frankly, if a client comes to you and wants you to do something, you're not able to do it, you're not able to meet that deadline, you might not even be the right person to communicate that to the client. Maybe you communicate it to your boss and they communicate it to the client. But the key is communication. Know who those stakeholders are, communicate to those stakeholders, use your judgment. So if you can triangulate knowing your stakeholders, using that judgment from the information that you've collected from them, and then communicating to them, you're gonna feel a lot less stress. Listen, life can be stressful and that's okay. But an ability to be able to prioritize is really key to success in anybody's career. So thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Doug McConey Vlog. Stay tuned for more exciting content. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we got a whole bunch of international trips coming around. You know, it's conference season. We've got some Doug McConey game shows that are coming along, the PwC conference circuit. A lot of good stuff coming soon. So stay tuned and we'll see you soon on the Doug McConey channel.